Hello, dear students. Welcome to your English class. Today we are going to continue chapter Bepin Chaudhary's Lapses of Memory, which is chapter number 4 in your Honeydew book. Before we proceed to the second part of the chapter, we will have a quick recap of the things that we have done in the part 1. In the part 1, we have seen that this is the story about a man whose name is Bepin Chaudhary. Bepin Chaudhary has a habit of reading books. He was a person who does not like to talk to others a lot. Rather, he was an introvert person who likes to spend his time in reading the books. So, it was his habit. Generally, at the end of the week, he used to go to the Kalicharan's market, and from there he used to buy some books. And we have seen that what kind of books he used to buy. He used to buy the thrillers, the crime stories. One day, when he visited that market in order to buy some books, and while he was looking at the books at some bookstall, suddenly he felt that somebody was looking at him. The person came to him and he called him by his name. And that person also told him that Bepin Chaudhary has been in Ranchi in the 1958. Bepin Chaudhary was very much surprised how it is possible that I had been in Ranchi, and I have how it is possible that I can forget that thing entirely. In a way, he was not able to accept it that he was there, because he think that he remembers things very well, but the man gave him a lot of things about a lot of evidences, how did he get a cut marks on his knee, what was his habit, what was the condition of his family, how many members were there in family. He gave a lot of evidences showing that Bepin Chaudhary had made that person. All these things left Bepin Chaudhary in a complete confusion whether that man is saying correctly or he is incorrect. Okay, now let us continue the second part. I'll read the paragraph. Bipin Babu's car was safely parked in Batram Street by the Lighthouse Cinema. He told the driver as he got into the car, "Just drive by the Ganga. Will you, Sitaram?" Driving up the Strand Road, Bipin Babu regretted having paid so much attention to the intruder. He had never been to Ranchi, no question about it. It was inconceivable that he should forget such an innocent incident which took place only 6 or 7 years ago. After Bipin Chaudhary came out of the market, he went directly to his car. His car was parked in Bedram Street, and after getting into the car, he said to his driver Sitaram to drive by Ganga. And while he was sitting in the car, Bipin Chaudhary was in a mood of confusion, in a mood of surprise, that how is it possible that I have forgotten that thing entirely. Though he was also thinking that no, he is correct, he is not making any mistake, he has never been to that place. He is somewhat sure about himself. Still, the words of that man are echoing, moving round and round in his head. So he think that he was regretting. Regret means pachhtana, repent karna. He was regretting that why he has paid so much attention on the words of that person. He thinks that I am quite sure that I have never been to Ranchi. How can that person say so? Though Bipin Babu did not believe over the words of that person, but in a way something is going on. His words are moving, so he is repenting that why he has given so much attention to that person. And it was inconceivable means unacceptable. It was acceptable for him to believe that he has forgotten an important incident of his life that has taken place only 6 to 7 years ago. Let us move to the second part. He had an excellent memory, unless Bipin Babu's head reeled. Utter disbelief, complete surprise. His head reeled, he was shocked and confused. He was working daily in his office. It was a big firm and he was doing a responsible job. He wasn't aware of anything ever going seriously wrong. Only today he spoke for a half an hour at an important meeting, and yet Bipin Chaudhary has a very was very much confident about his memory. He thinks that he remember almost all the things, and he it is not that he was a very careless person, so he could forget the things. He was not a careless person. He was working on an important post in an office, and he was also doing his work very responsibly. So he was not a person who can forget the things so easily. Okay, let us see the next part. And yet the man knew a great deal about him. How? Even he seemed to know some intimate details. The bag of books, wife's death, brother's insanity. The only mistake was about his having gone to Ranchi. Not a mistake, a deliberate lie. In 1958, during the pujas, he was in Kanpur at his friend Haridas Bagchi's place. All Bipin Babu had to do was to write to. No, there was no way of writing to Haridas. Bipin Babu suddenly remembered that Haridas had left with his family for Japan some weeks ago and he did not have his address. The second paragraph is the continuation of the first part. Bipin Babu is still in his car and he is thinking about that person. And though he is having two things. On one hand, he is quite sure about himself that he cannot forget anything, any important incident of his life, and he is sure that he had never been to रांची. एक तरफ उसको पूरा विश्वास है कि वो रांची कभी नहीं गया है. On the other hand, the words of that man are moving round and round, revolving again and again, reminding him the things, reminding him that he had been there in the Ranchi. Though Bipin Babu did not believe over the words of that person, still he was surprised and he also believed that he had never met that person before. Still, when he thinks about some other things, then he thinks that the man know a lot of things about him, and that man knows some of the things which are known only to Bipin Babu. Intimate means very close things. He knows very close secrets of Bipin Babu, like the books, bag of books, wife's death, brother insanities. These are some of the things which are creating some doubt in the mind of the Bipin Babu that he had been there in the Ranchi. Otherwise, he is sure that he had not been in the Ranchi. Bipin Babu thinks that he is sure that he was not in the Ranchi in the 1958 because he spent that year, especially the month of the October, in pujas in the Kanpur. Then he remembered of his. Then he thought that there is one way of making some confirmation where was he in that month, whether he was in Ranchi or Kanpur, because he remembered that he spent that month with his friend Haridas Bagchi at his house. So he thought that he should write a letter to Haridas Bagchi and ask him that where was he during that month, whether he was in Kanpur or he was in Ranchi. Okay, so he is Haridas Bagchi. Haridas Bagchi is the friend of Bipin Chaudhary, and Bipin Chaudhary thinks that he spent his October month of the 1958 with Haridas Bagchi. So why did he want to write the letter to him? He wants to write a letter to him just to make it sure where was he during that month, whether he was in Ranchi or he was in Kanpur. Though in his mind, in his heart, he is thinking that he was there in the Kanpur. Let us see in the next part. But where was the need of for proof? He himself was fully aware that he hadn't been to Ranchi. And that was that. The river breeze was bracing, yet a slight discomfort lingered in Bipin Babu's mind around Hastings. Bipin Babu decided to roll up his trouser and take a look at his right knee. There was the mark of an old 1-inch long cut. This was impossible to tell which injury had when the injury had occurred. Then Bipin Babu is completely perplexed, confused. Does not know what to do, whether he should trust himself or he should trust that person who has told him that he had been there in the Ranchi. Once he thought that he should write the letter for a proof to Haridas. Then he said to himself, is there really a need of proof? He is himself a proof, and he is fully aware. He is fully aware that he had not been in the Ranchi. So there should not be any need of the proof. बिपिन बाबू को ऐसा विश्वास है कि वो रांची कभी गए ही नहीं हैं, तो क्या ज़रूरत है किसी से प्रूफ मांगने की. दो he was still there in his car. A very cool breeze means air, cool air, a cool breeze air was blowing, and it was a very comfortable atmosphere. It was a very cozy atmosphere. Even though atmosphere was very cozy, very comfortable, Bipin Babu was not feeling very comfortable. In a way, he was feeling suffocated. He was thinking about the words of that person, and some doubts were going in his mind that yeah, really he was there in the Kanpur, in the Ranchi. So just to make it, then he remembered that that person has told him that there was a cut mark on his knee, and he got that cut mark when he fall down. To make it sure that whether he really had any cut mark or not, he rolled up his trousers, and he found a inch long cut mark on his right knee. But he did not remember when did he get that cut mark. Had he never had a fall as a boy and cut his knees? He tried to recall such an incident but couldn't. When Bipin Babu saw the cut mark on his knee, then he started thinking, possibly I got this cut mark while I was a boy and when I fall down. He tried to remember anything that has happened in his life when he got a cut mark, but sorry, he couldn't remember any incident of falling as a boy. Then Bipin Babu suddenly thought of Dinesh Mukherjee. The man had said that Dinesh was in Ranchi at the same time. Best thing surely would be to ask him. He lived quite near, in Benindanand Street. What about going right now? But then he had really never been to Ranchi. What would Dinesh think of Bipin? Bipin Babu asked for a confirmation. He would probably conclude Bipin Babu was going nuts. Going nuts means becoming crazy, becoming mad. No, it would be ridiculous to ask him. And he knew how ruthless Dinesh's sarcasm would be. Okay. Bipin Babu tried to remember any incident of his life when he had a fall and he got a cut mark in his legs, but he couldn't recall any incident of his life. Still, he was in the state of confusion. अभी भी उसे बहुत confusion है. So he thought that he remembered the word of that person. That person had said that Bipin Babu was there along with another person whose name was Dinesh Mukherjee, and this Dinesh Mukherjee lived very close from that place. He lived in the Venindanand Street. So Bipin Babu thought that he should go to Dinesh Mukherjee and ask him for the confirmation. He should make confirmation from him whether he was in Ranchi or not. Then another thought came in his mind. Suppose I had not been there in Ranchi at that time, what Dinesh Mukherjee will think of me? Will he not think that I have become mad? उसके मन में एक विचार आया कि अगर मान लो मैं रांची नहीं रहा हूँ और मैं फिर भी उससे पूछता हूँ दिनेश मुखर्जी जो मेरा फ्रेंड है, सो व्हाट विल ही थिंक? ही विल श्योरली थिंक दैट आई हैव बिकम मैड. उसको लगेगा कि मैं पागल हो गया. एंड यू नो what does the friends do? Generally the friends make a lot of taunting over our forgetfulness or any mistake that we make. हम कोई गलती करते हो, हमारे फ्रेंड हमारा मजाक उड़ाते हैं ना, बहुत बुरा. सेम थिंग was Bipin Chaudhary thinking that if that person is correct and if I really had been to Ranchi, then that person Dinesh Mukherjee will think very bad about me and he will make a fun of me. वो तो मेरा मजाक उड़ा लेंगे. And he said, and he knew how ruthless means cruel. Dinesh's sarcasm could be. Sarcasm means taunting. He knew that if Dinesh comes to know about this thing, he will make a lot of taunting over me. Okay, so here still Bipin Chaudhary is in the state of the confusion. Now he reached at his home. Sipping a cold drink in his air conditioned living room, Bipin Babu felt at ease again. Such a nuisance, just because they have nothing else to do, they go about getting into other people's hair. Getting into other people's hair means interfering. After dinner, snuggling in bed with one of the new thrillers, Bipin Babu forgot all about the man in the new market. Next day in the office, Bipin Babu noticed that with every passing hour, previous day's encounter was occupying more and more of his mind. And if the man knew so much about Bipin Babu, how could he make such a mistake about the Ranchi trip? Just before lunch, Bipin Babu decided to ring up Dinesh Mukherjee. It was better to settle the question over the phone. At least the embarrassment on his face would not be shown. Now Bipin Babu was in his house. He was drinking coffee, and then he was reading one of the books that he has bought, and still the words of that person were moving in his mind. And he was thinking, he was feeling very much annoyed, and he was thinking that how does people create so much problem for others just by entering into their प्राइवेट मैटर्स. उसे लग रहा था कैसे लोग दूसरों के मैटर में इंटर करके इतना ज़्यादा कन्फ्यूजन क्रिएट करते हैं दूसरों के लिए. Next day, Bipin Babu went to the office, and as the time was passing slowly and slowly, he was still remembering the words of that person, though he was trying to forget it. उसको भूलने की कोशिश कर रहा था, but those words were coming again and again in the minds of the Bipin Babu, and Bipin Babu was thinking, how is it possible if that person knows so much about me? अगर वो आदमी मेरे बारे में इतना जानता है, how can I forget about the Ranchi trip? मैं रांची ट्रिप के बारे में कैसे भूल सकता हूँ. सी दिस थिंग हैज़ मेड अ परमानेंट प्लेस इन द माइंड ऑफ द बिपिन बाबू. स्टिल ही इज़ थिंकिंग दैट ही was not there in the Ranchi, but still then he remembers the words of that person who has told him that he was there in the Ranchi, and he thinks that if that person knows so much about me, then how can I forget the things. Then finally he decided that he will make a call to his friend Dinesh Mukherjee and make a confirmation from him. उनसे एक confirmation लेगा. He dialed the number 235616. Bipin Babu dialed the number. Hello, is that Dinesh? This is Bipin here. Well, that's what's the news? I just wanted to find out if you recall an incident which took place in 58. 58? Which incident? Are you in Calcutta right through that year? That's the first thing I have got to know. Just a minute. 58. Just let me check in my diary. For a minute there was a silence. Bipin Babu could feel his heart beat had gone up. He was sweating a little. Hello, yes, I have got it. I have been out twice. Okay. Finally Bipin Babu made a call to his friend Dinesh Mukherjee. Dinesh Mukherjee picked up the phone, and they started talking. And finally, directly Bipin Babu asked Dinesh Mukherjee that Dinesh, can you tell me where have we been in the 1950s? Have you ever been out of Calcutta in the 1958? Dinesh Mukherjee checked his diary, and he told him, yes, I was out of the Calcutta for 2 times in the year 58. Now the heartbeat of Bipin Chaudhary started going up. He asked the question, where have you been? Dinesh Mukherjee told him, once in February nearby to Krishnanagar to nephew's wedding, and then, but don't you know about this one, the trip to Ranchi? You were too there. That's all. But what's this sleuthing about? No, just I wanted to know. Anyway, thanks. Bipin Babu slammed the receiver down, gripped his head in his with his hands. He felt his head swimming. A chill seemed to spread over his body. There was sandwiches in the tiffin box, but he didn't eat them. He had lost his appetite. Okay, after checking in his diary, Dinesh Mukherjee told him that yes, he was out of the Kolkata for two times. One in the month of the February, for in the to the Krishna Nagar in a nephew's wedding. Then he made a question to him. Then he made a question to Bipin Chaudhary. Bipin, why are you asking this question to me? Don't you remember the another trip that we had to the Ranchi? It means he confirmed it. Dinesh Mukherjee confirmed it that he was there in the Ranchi along with Bipin Chaudhary in 1958. After listening this thing, Bipin Chaudhary became completely shocked. He was completely shocked. He put down the receiver, he held his head in his hand, and now he was thinking that how it is possible he has forgotten his appetite. Okay, this is all about the this part. Now we will continue in the next chapter.